The Japanese monarchy is the oldest continuous hereditary monarchy in the world, stretching back more than 2,600 years, at least according to legend. These days, while the role of the emperor is largely ceremonial, he still plays a significant symbolic role. Japan's constitution states that the emperor shall be the symbol of the state and of the unity of the people. However, the Japanese imperial family faces something of an existential crisis, with strict male-only succession laws and a tiny number of heirs, raising the risk that Japan's reigning dynasty could become extinct. So in this video, we're going to explain Japan's imperial succession crisis, the proposals that could save the monarchy, and whether Prime Minister Takaichi will push them through.
If you love staying informed and want some of the best reporting on YouTube, then subscribe and ring the bell for more.
We're going to start by explaining how the line of imperial succession actually works in Japan, with it governed by the Imperial Household Law of 1947, which superseded a law of the same name from 1889. According to the law, Japanese imperial succession follows the principle of patrilineal primogenitura, or in simpler terms, succession to the chrysanthemum throne is strictly limited to males in the male line of the imperial family. So female members of the imperial family cannot become empress, nor can they produce an heir to the throne. If they marry outside of the imperial family, they lose their royal status and become commoners. And because the 1947 law significantly cut down the size of the imperial family by removing 11 out of 12 branches, any marriage by a princess will necessarily be to a commoner. So with those rules in mind, let's take a look at the Japanese imperial family tree. The current emperor is Naruhito, who was elevated to the throne in 2019, following his father's abdication. Emperor Naruhito only has one child, 24-year-old Princess Aiko. So given that she's ineligible for the throne, the heir presumptive is Emperor Naruhito's younger brother, Crown Prince Fumihito. Fumihito has two daughters, one of whom lost her imperial status after getting married, and one son, Prince Hisahito, who was born in 2006 to much relief and is second in line to the throne. And then, technically third in line to the throne is the emperor's 90-year-old uncle Masahito, who has no children. So in total, there are just 3 heirs to the throne, and the future of the imperial line can only run through Prince Hisahito. This heaps a huge amount of pressure onto the 19-year-old prince to not just marry, but have at least one son to sustain the line of succession and keep the monarchy from going extinct. Emperor Naruhito has acknowledged the succession crisis, saying in 2024 that this is a problem that relates to the future of the imperial family. However, while the imperial family sits above politics, it's only politicians who can solve the crisis, as they are the ones who can actually change the law. Changing succession law is not unprecedented either. In 2017, for instance, the Imperial Household Law was amended to enable Emperor Akihito to abdicate in 2019. So what are the possible solutions here? The first option is probably the most obvious one: liberalize the system by opening it up to women. A switch to absolute primogeniture, i.e. succession to the eldest child regardless of sex, would open the way for a female emperor. After all, Japan has had 8 female monarchs over the centuries, most recently in the 18th century, and it was only in 1889 that the law was changed, apparently inspired by Prussia, to limit the throne to male descendants, as part of the Meiji Restoration. Similar changes, which could be combined with the proposed reform, would be to allow for matrilineal succession, i.e. succession down the female line, and allowing princesses to remain in the imperial family after marriage, and therefore produce heirs. Changing the law to allow for a female emperor, or an emperor of female lineage, was actually something proposed by a government-appointed panel back in 2005, amid a debate over the succession crisis. At the time, no male heir had been produced since 1965, but these reform plans were ultimately shelved following the birth of Hisahito in 2006. Nonetheless, allowing for a female emperor is still an idea with significant public backing. Polls tend to put support for the proposal at least 70%, while there's also support for allowing succession down the maternal line, with one recent poll putting it at 64%. The popularity of Princess Aiko, who as the emperor's only child would be the heir under the different rules, has contributed to these growing calls. Proponents argue that not only would it stabilize the line of succession, it would also modernize the imperial family, with an act of equality that could boost enthusiasm among the more apathetic younger generations. However, under the current government, it's unlikely that any such change will be made. Prime Minister Sane Takaichi may be Japan's first female prime minister, but she comes from the ruling LDP's conservative wing, and is opposed to the idea. Conservative traditionalists are generally against an empress taking the throne, and are even more opposed to the idea of matrilineal succession, seeing it as a dilution of the 126 generations of male line inheritance, and arguing that the empresses who reigned many centuries ago were from the male line, and in effect held the throne until a male heir of the paternal line came of age. Instead, the favoured solution of Takaichi's LDP is to in effect revive the defunct branches of the Imperial Family that were removed back in 1947, by allowing the Imperial Family to essentially adopt males of male lineage from those former branches, and reintegrate them into the succession. Proponents argue that this would stabilise the line of succession without breaking the tradition. After all, these branches historically ensured that the imperial bloodline would continue. That being said, some argue that this would be unconstitutional, and furthermore that these branches have been outside the imperial family and their members ordinary citizens for more than 3/4 of a century. So how would the public react to a stranger effectively being parachuted in like that? Nonetheless, that is the proposal that the ruling LDP included in its election manifesto earlier this year. And Takaichi is reportedly extremely keen on amending the Imperial Household Law to tackle the issue which has been stalled for years. But whether she will use her huge majority to push ahead with the LDP's desired changes, or try and reach some kind of consensus with other parties that more resembles public opinion, remains to be seen. Interestingly, the debate about Japan's imperial succession is almost a microcosm of debates about Japanese society as a whole. For example, the debate over the right of women to accede to the throne, or princesses to retain their imperial status after marriage, has echoes to the wider political debate over whether to allow separate surnames for married couples, and other women's rights issues. And more clearly than that, the image of an ancient imperial family facing an existential crisis with a shortage of young royals and future emperors doesn't feel too out of place in a country that's infamously facing its own demographic crisis. Clearly, the current state of the world is plagued by uncertainty and risk. And just while you've been watching this video, your personal information may have been sold or published online without you even knowing about it. And you might just think, well, what's the harm in a few spam calls? But unfortunately, it's not that simple. It might be scary, but scams and identity theft both start with your personal data being exposed online. So that's why we turn to Incogni. Incogni expertly tracks down and removes your data from multiple sites, so that your personal information can't be bought or sold by bad actors online. No longer will your data pop up on online directories, people's search sites, or commercial databases for everyone to see and abuse. They work on your behalf to request your personal data removal, and even conduct repeated removal requests so that you can remain in control. You can even send Incogni sites that expose your data, and they'll send removal requests on your behalf, or assist in you opting out on your own with their custom removals feature. And it's even impacting parts of your life that you never thought about. For example, your health insurance could actually raise your rates just based on your online activity, particularly the data that you enter into health apps. Insurance companies can easily buy that data and decide for themselves just how healthy you are, without you even getting a say. From your phone number to your political affiliation, Incogni can help you find it all and remove it from the internet for good, keeping you protected from the threats you might not even be aware of. Because if they can't find you, they can't harm you. There's no better time to start protecting yourself. So create an account with our link in the description, grant Incogni the ability to work on your behalf, and sit back as they make you safer. Plus, by using code TLDRnews at checkout, you can get an exclusive 60% off their annual Incogni plan. And there's absolutely no risk either with their 30-day money-back guarantee.